Welcome back. In this lesson, we're going to look at renewable energy resources. So even though the Earth is completely addicted to using fossil fuels, we realize that fossil fuels is limited and we cannot continue going on forever and ever using them and using them up. So while we are using them, we are developing or trying to develop other resources that would be more renewable, less polluting, and cheaper to run. And so we'll look at a lot of these together. That the sun is the ultimate source of energy on the Earth. Well, the sunshine is a potential energy source that, with the right technology, can be used freely because it's shining. Now, eventually the sun will burn out, but that will be a long time from now. And so in the meantime, it is possible that you can get a lot of energy from the sun, whether it be your calculator, the solar power calculator, or whether it be your house or even a factory. A lot of people are putting a lot of money and time into thinking, is it possible that we could do it? Because it's very clean and there isn't any side effects that would either dirty the earth or make it warmer or have pollution as a result. And so it's a fascinating study that a lot of people are putting a lot of time and money into. Non-renewable fossil fuels are what is about 80% right now. So gasoline and heating oil and coal power plants. This is what most of the electricity, most of the vehicles are running by. And even though that there are other options, this is still by far the cheapest overall, though it just doesn't, it's not tenable to continue this because fossil fuels are limited. It's a limited resource and could run out. So there's lots of private companies, lots of public governments that are putting lots of research dollars into, are there alternatives for vehicles? Are there alternatives for factories, etc., power plants even, in terms of, do we need to put investment in to change simply because we're not changing because we already have what we have? And that's what's being discussed. So a few of these ideas have been around forever. The first one that is very interesting is passive solar heating. If you design your house correctly, you can let winter light into the windows and summer light is not allowed in because the sun is at a different angle in the sky. So if you figure out where the windows go and have some overhangs to protect the windows from summer sun, then the hot sunlight will not come in your window and you won't have to cool your house because the heat source never made it in your house. And you don't have to heat your house as much because the sun comes through the windows into the house during the winter. If you were to build your house of something that could hold on to that heat, like a big bank of concrete or a concrete floor or walls or bricks or masonry or tile, that's generally considered cold materials, that could heat up with the sunlight, then it would re-radiate into the house and make it much cheaper to heat and cool. Active solar heatings using solar panels, and that's photovoltaic cells. Photovoltaic cell is used of two thin layers or pieces of silicon that simply by the means of its chemical properties can generate electricity if you put it a certain distance away, and people have figured out how to do it. And you can generate electricity from sunlight very similarly to the way plants do. Plants are using solar collectors in order to make sugar out of carbon dioxide and water. Well, photovoltaic cells are actively making electricity that's then stored in batteries, and then the batteries then would be drained by your appliances or whatever. The technology, of course, is expensive whenever it's new, but as it becomes more and more readily available, the prices come down and more people can afford it. Also, governments tend to give tax rebates and discounts to people who are employing these new technologies. Another way of getting energy that's renewable is hydroelectric energy. So if you were to have a reservoir or a dam that usually was built for flood control, you then can put a turbine in that dam so that when you let the water out, it can turn the turbine and generate electricity. And so you it's a very popular way because mostly dams are not owned by people. They're owned by municipalities and governments, and so they can make the proper investment so that they can, as they build them, they're building the power plants into these dams so that they serve two purposes or more than two purposes. Another really easy way, if you can get to it, is to use the ocean waves to generate electricity. So the waves are continuously blowing by the wind. The wind makes the ocean waves. The ocean waves have lots of energy in them, and you can use this energy to generate electricity. So either you're actually pushing on some kind of a turbine by the water, or by some other means of using, say, wind from the waves in order to generate electricity, as in the graphic here. So in any case, that's really cool because that's free. You're always going to have the waves, and so as long as you have ocean, you could generate electricity from it. I really like that one. Another one that is awesome is geothermal energy. If you were to simply dig a well deep down into the ground, okay, but not allow it to be in the water table, then what will happen is that the temperature of the air would stabilize at whatever the temperature is deep underground. So if deep underground is a constant temperature, okay, then you would have access to that temperature in your house. So let's say you have a pipe going down into the ground, and it's wintertime, okay? So it's 10 degrees outside, and it's 45 degrees deep underground. Well, you have a heat pump that will simply pump air down into ground, up into your house, and it's almost like a free heater. All you're paying for is to pump the air that's already a certain temperature. You don't have to heat that air first with a furnace. So essentially it's free. In the summertime, it's the same. If it's 45 degrees underground and it's 80 degrees in the house, you can simply pump that cool air, and it now stabilizes the room temperature at a constant rate. Then you would only need a little bit of extra heat to heat your house in the winter and to cool it in the summer. So it would be basically for free as long as you have the pipes. Another one, of course, is windmills. If you can use the wind in order to drive a turbine, you can then store energy, usually in batteries, for later. This becomes more and more available. The prices go down. As people think it's less ugly, maybe they'll accept it more. I can imagine putting this on the ocean so that nobody's actually seeing it, but the sea breezes could be blowing this. I think that would be cool. Another one, of course, is nuclear energy, and that's been around since the 50s. The problem is you're using a nuclear material that is breaking down into some smaller material with energy to come off of it. And the energy is very free as long as you've got uranium or plutonium or something. The problem is eventually that wears out, and now you have to put radioactive material somewhere. You have to store the spent fuel rods somewhere, and nobody wants it in their backyard because it takes 1 million years for it to lose its radioactivity. So there is, and if you were to have, say, accidents like the one in Japan, that's having a nuclear reactor that now is putting radioactivity into the area, people don't like it. People are scared of it. But essentially, all you're doing is boiling water, making steam, and then the steam runs a turbine, and the turbine generates electricity. Other things that a lot of people like are renewable energy, so gasoline from corn. So you grow corn, that's a biomass, It's a biomass fuel, and then you use ethanol from corn alcohol to run a car with. There's pros and cons, and lots of people who are in corn growing states really like this, and they're a good political lobby that makes everyone think that corn is king. And then biodiesel is fuel that is normally from some kind of oil. You can even take old French fry oil from restaurants and turn it into some kind of a burnable fuel. That way you've already kind of messed it up anyway, and now you're just using it twice. So it's almost like recycling.